Good morning, everybody. I hope this works. See here, I'm going to adjust the video. There we go. And I got to adjust some audio. It looks like we're live. That's good. Hope the internet cooperates with me. I am not in my normal location today. I am in my hotel room. So I'm traveling today to chase the eclipse. So I'm in Indy. I've got family here. So when the last one happened in 2017, Kansas City was in the path of totality, and we got to see it. And I said to my mom and my sisters and my dad, and I said, "Oh my God, you guys, you have to see this." And so we looked up when the next one was, and it was April 8th, 2024, and we made plans. So, which is not that unusual for my family to make plans 7 years in advance. So we made plans, and here we are. So we're all here in Indianapolis for the eclipse, and we're super excited. So but I wanted to go live with you guys today and talk about what's happening in the studios this week. So the PowerPoint is going to look a little different because although I tried to use this nice plain teal wall for my green screen background, it is really close to the same as my eye color. And that made it really creepy when I chose that as my green screen color. Then my slideshow kept showing up in my eyes, which was bizarre. So I just went ahead with the blurred background, and then I'm going to share my screen with you a little bit more traditional. So it'll look a little different, but I promise the content is the same. So let's knock it out. The only thing that's different is I have to look at my notes on my phone today because I don't have a printer to print them out. So if I look down, that's what I'm doing. I'm just looking at my notes. I think we are good to go. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Like I said, it'll look a little bit different, but I do have a PowerPoint. So we'll do that. And that way you guys can see the slideshow. I just won't be in my normal spot on top of the slideshow because the green screen isn't working. Okay, here we go. So first things first, happy second week of April to everybody. Everybody has class this week. So nobody has any weird off days. I like to always let you know that if there is one, it happened like I tell you in the intro of this video. So there's no off days. Everybody has class. As a heads up, if you're looking at the calendar of April, there are 5 Mondays and 5 Tuesdays. Normally, we would take that off. The drawing and multimedia students, you guys are going to go ahead and have class that day. We're going to start our May lessons because we want to get done before Memorial Day. So we won't have any off days this month. We'll just roll right into May. And then as a reminder, you can always find your schedule by going to the it's inside your Sawyer account after you register. So if you need instructions on how to do that, we have a web page just for you. You can find it by going to the footer of our web page, and it says makeup, schedules, and more for current students, and you can click on that. Okie dokie, let's rock this out. Here in our preschool classes this week, our April classes are all about Impressionism. They're about the art of Monet. They're about the art made with natural elements. We're alternating the first 2 weeks, and that's because we're sharing supplies. We share the rubber mallet. So Liberty last week read Ferdinand and got to pound on flowers and make perfumes. The studio always smells so good when we do that project because it's citrus fruits and fresh flowers and essential oils, and it smells so good. So Flat Woods will get to do that this week. So they will read Ferdinand and get to do all those flowery type of projects, which I think will be super fun for them. We gave them the rubber mallets, so they're good to go. And then Liberty will do what Platwoods did last week. So we're going to read Make Way for Ducklings. And I think we still do some flowers, like we draw a flower still life with chalk pastels. And then we make some duck art using our mixed media skills. So a lot of collage, washi tape, a little bit of drawing. Should be fun. I'm looking ahead for you guys. So if you're in preschool classes, like this is week 2, next week is week 3. And then you will have at least 1, if not 2 weeks off. So if you're in a Monday or Tuesday preschool class, just take a look at a calendar. You are not affected by that 5th day in April. We're just going to, do what we've done all year. You'll have 3 classes. You'll have, the days off until we get to the next month, and then you'll have another 3 classes. So if you're in a Thursday, Friday, you'll just have the 1 week off. Second, third, K third, K first. So all the multimedia classes, it's Fiber Arts Month. you guys are sewing. So this is always one of my favorite months because I feel like we teach a very practical skill. Like learning how to hand sew is a life skill. And I think that that's super valuable. They're going to be sewing monster stuffies. So last week, our first step of our project was to design the stuffy and create their pattern. The instructors are doing all of the cutting part just because cutting fabric it's not easy. We have to use really sharp scissors for it, and I only have so many of them. If I give them the regular scissors, and that's just frustrating, and I don't want art to be frustrating. So we'll do the cutting of the fabric for them. I think most of them are already cut out. The instructors kind of take care of that during our downtime all of last week, based on what their pattern was. And we very rarely, guys, in art class do we tell kids, oh no, you can't do that. That's too complicated. But in sewing month, we do, because their imagination is so much bigger than their technical ability to sew. So when we tell them, go design a monster, like their imaginations are so big, you guys, and they're so wonderful. But they design these really elaborate and complicated things. And the instructors are like, let's pare that down. We're going to use simple shapes. We're going to use straight lines because whatever you create, you have to sew. And we're beginner sewers. So we did kind of limit some of their monster designs because we know what's coming. So just if your kids mention that to you, that's why. It's not because we want to be party poopers. It's just because sewing with kindergartners, we know we need to keep it simple. So we did stay to simple shapes. So that's this week, like all the monster shapes, the bodies, the arms, the legs, like they'll all be cut out in their little Ziploc bags and ready to go. They're going to learn how to sew. So we're going to learn a running stitch so that they can work on getting those pieces together. They're also going to learn how to thread a needle, which really helps us because it's going to come unthreaded, and there's 14 of them and one instructor. So it's helpful if they know how to rethread their needles. We use needle threaders for that. And some kids prefer that, and some kids just like to try to stick the crochet thread through the eye of the needle. We'll see. So that'll be fun for them. I do know when we had our staff meeting, some of my instructors are going to have them put on some facial features on their creatures this week, like in week 2. I don't think every class will do that. A lot of it depends on what they've designed and how that's going to interact with the sewing. So I hesitate to say that they're going to do facial features because I don't think every class needs to do it, but some of them are going to get the facial features on. We're just using fabric glue for that. And then they'll sew around the stuffy. So if your kid's like, we didn't get to put on eyes and nose and mouth, don't worry, we will. They just must not have been in that block. Some of them. All right. My 4th and 5th in my homeschool class, you guys are doing those embroidery hoops. So we had some really beautiful pictures of these. I'm really pleased with how they're coming out. Their subject matter is a garden, and they spent some time designing that in their journals, and then they used hot glue to draw that onto their embroidery hoop, which is really cool. A lot of them are very talented drawing with hot glue. It's not an easy thing to do. So what we told them, whatever they draw, they now have to sew. So the more complicated and intricate your design is, the more embroidery you get to do. And then we painted our background, and we used a liquid watercolor on top of the muslin. I'm super pleased with how bright and vibrant that was. Last year, we did this similar project with the K-3s, and we did the same thing. Like we did watercolors, although we also used acrylic inks, which I thought were going to be super bright and vibrant, and they weren't. And I was so disappointed in that. But I think it was my fabric. We didn't use a muslin. We used a canvas, and I think it just kind of absorbed and became kind of dull. So it was really lovely to see how wonderful these colors were actually. And the glue does a really good job of resisting the watercolors. Almost gave this like batik feel to it. So I'm like, they look good just as it is. I can't wait to see what they look like with embroidery. So their plan almost all of them got the gluing and the painting done. And there's a few maybe that didn't get quite that far, but almost everybody did. So this week, again, we're going to learn the stitchings, learn to thread a needle, which for a lot of them, it's going to be a review, learn how to tie a knot. they're using embroidery floss. So unlike the K-thirds who are using a crochet thread, which stays together a little bit more, that embroidery floss, if anyone's ever used it, child of the 80s who made friendship bracelets, right? Like it's made up of a bunch of little threads. And so it can get kind of frustrating for threading a needle because like you put it in and like half of them don't go in the eye of the needle. So we're going to practice threading needles because that'll make our life easier if they can thread their own needles. And then we'll learn how to do that embroidery stitch that covers the top of the glue that we blobbed onto our embroidery hoop. So we'll get kind of like a puffy dimensional embroidery. So I think it'll be really cool. So again, this next week is just all about learning. We'll see where everybody's at. Some of the kids who have done this before might just, they might just go. They might be sewing. They might be halfway done by the time we finish here. But we do have 3 weeks, so 3 classes this week, next week, and the week after to get all of the stitching and sewing done. So they have a long time to figure it out. Our 6th, 7th, and our 8th through 12th classes, you guys are needle felting. So it's our fiber arts month. Rather than sewing, we're going to create 3-dimensional sculptures using wool roving. So this is like, well, some of it's wool roving and some of it's a carded wool, but it's all a natural fiber. And we're using a barbed needle, which is a felting needle, and you stab it up and down until it becomes a tangled blob of felt, and then you can create sculptures out of it. So their subject matter is a moth or a butterfly. They were really excited about that. I got to sub 2 of those classes this last week and had a lot of fun with them. Super pleased. A lot of them have done this before. This is our 3rd year where we've done needle felting with this age group. So for most of them, this is something they've done, and they were super excited to see it come back around. They got through, in most of our classes, we got through building the body. So we got through like a felting lesson, and we got through building the actual bodies. The bodies are about the size of your finger. This week, they'll design their wings. So for a lot of this age group, they really like to do their research. So they'll do some Googling on their phones, and they'll look up like, what does a butterfly wing look like? What are my options on moths? And get some inspiration, do some drawing, design the way they want their wings to look. They will create a paper template mostly for reference, like to scale, because then as you're felting it down on your foam, you can lay your template around and make sure that that wing size is coming to be the size that you want it to be. Like you're not going to finish all that work of felting and be like, it's too small, or it's too big, or the left one's bigger than the right one. Or so they'll have a template that they can continue to, like the whole time they're felting, to measure against. We're going to felt with, when we do the wings, same as the body, we felt with either a white or a black for like the base layer. And then all the designs go on like as a skin. Again, just like in the other classes, we've got 3 more weeks to get this done. What's nice about sewing month is that there's not like, it's just work time. It just takes time. It takes time to hand sew. It takes time to embroider. It takes time to needle felt. Like once you've got the skill, it's just time. It's put on the music and get to work. So super chill. Our creative explorations classes, you guys are loving Fiber Month. So all those things I just explained for the multimedia classes are available to our creative explorations. So they have embroidery options. They have sewing options. They have, if you've looked at some of the pictures from Liberty's preschool classes, we have like a large fabric that the kids have been painting and spraying and dyeing. We had that up for them. They really enjoyed participating in that collaborative vertical surface art. So we have a lot of really great like textures, and because fiber art is so textural. So it's a sensory rich type environment for creative explorations. And it's also like sewing is one of those things that for me is very soothing. Like once you figure it out, like to be able to hyper focus on something and let the whole world disappear, because drawing works like that for me too. But like the whole world disappears when I work on something on this scale. And so I think that embroidery and sewing is such an amazing gift. So I am super excited to see the magic that happens in creative explorations class this month, because for me, fiber arts is so focused as opposed to being out here. So yeah, it just adds a different vibe. And lots of really great things happening in this class this month. Oh, I also know that we had in Liberty anyway, we had some like leftover the flowers, the citrus fruits, the essential oils from Ferdinand. So that really like sensory rich perfume making. Think Mud Kitchen, only pretty. We had those ingredients, and Flatwoods didn't because they do that this week. They do that project this week in their preschool classes. But so we like carried that project into creative explorations here in week 1. It's not something that'll be available in the next couple weeks, but they really enjoyed having that as an option too. Okay, drawing 101 classes, you guys. Okay, I want to apologize. I made a mistake last week. I didn't make a mistake in the notes. My notes were right. My cliff notes were right. My notes that I typed up for the video, the notes that were listed in the Facebook post or in the email. So good. So correct. But in the actual video, what came out of my mouth was wrong. So, and I didn't realize it until Nancy taught the class. She taught the one that the curriculum said we were supposed to teach. And then I was like, oh, that's not what I told the people. So I apologize. Last week in the video, I was like, drawing 101 people, you guys are drawing 3-dimensional shapes. That's not true. That's so not true. And I have no excuse because I'm the one that writes the curriculum. I don't know what I was thinking. That was last year, that's what I did, but not this year. So anyways, drawing 101 classes last week, you in fact did not draw 3-dimensional shapes because my instructors, although that's what I said in the video, they followed my curriculum and not what I told you people, which is what they should do. They actually drew self-portraits and they were super adorable. They used a bunch of different drawing medium, which for them, because they've had most of them a whole year to play with the different media, they got to like pick their favorite and really show us what they could do, right? Because we're kind of back to repeating lessons, which is a comfort to be able to do something you've already done before and do it really well. So we did a self-portrait lesson. Some of the classes I know, once the self-portraits were done, they also then drew somebody in their class. We do partner portraits. This week, and I'm going to look at my notes so I get it right. This week in our Drawing 101 classes, we're going to break down the face a little bit more. We did this in September. Remember, we're just repeating a couple lessons for comfort. But in September, when we did it, we just did the eyes. And we're a little bit further along in our drawing journey. So we're adding noses and mouths. We're doing this from photographs. So we've got little tiny cutouts, basically, of just those facial features and of different faces. So different ages of faces, different races of faces, different angles of faces. But just these little like windows into them. So we kind of chopped them all up. And so they really get to focus on just that facial feature. So that's the plan for their lesson. So we're excited to get to use noses and mouths. That's been a request because those are the hard ones, right? All right, in drawing 102, advanced realistic. So I think I gotta switch my screen. There we go. Drawing 102, advanced realistic. You guys are going to be doing a bowl of fruit. So it's your classic still life. Like, I don't know if it gets any more classic than this, is to draw a bowl of fruit. And you're going to use chalk pastels for that. We have real fruit for you to look at. My drawing 102 comic and cartoon classes. So last week you drew those 3-dimensional shapes. I should mention drawing 102 advanced realistic did 3-dimensional shapes last week too. And you should totally check out the pictures on Facebook because they were amazing. I was so impressed with them. 102 comic and cartoon also did their 3-dimensional shapes last week. We had our staff meeting, right? And I asked the team, I was like, how did the kids do with the benchmarks? Like, what was their attitude about it? You know, because you get like some kids that are like, oh, I've already done this before. I'm like, yeah, heaven forbid you draw more than one portrait in your life. That's how you get better. But I understand, like, you lose the novelty. But I asked, and most of the classes were really receptive to why we repeat lessons. And I loved it. Miss Sarah said, she was like, I told my kids that the reason we do benchmarks is because you can't compare yourself to other people in the class. Like you can't look and go, oh, I'm not as good as this person, or why can't I draw like this person? Because we're all different. But we can compare ourselves to ourselves. And so benchmarks gives us an apples to apples type comparison, where we can see where our growth is and how far we've come and what we still need to work. So I thought that was really good. Okay, so in drawing 102 this week, they're going to go back to those character drawings using the mannequins. So we've got those drawing mannequins, and they'll put them into an action pose and then create a character in an action pose. We did this at the beginning of the year. The idea of flattening a three-dimensional figure is tricky, but that's what drawers do. We'll use some technology, so we'll use our cameras and our phones to help them to see a three-dimensional thing in space. So if you're not following, like we have these mannequins that are drawing mannequins, and we set them up into poses, and sometimes like maybe a hand is coming at you, right? So my hand is closer to the viewer than my elbow, shoulder, and face. How do I create that third dimension in my drawing? And I do it through the rules of perspective, right? So things get bigger when they get closer to me, they become sharper and more in focus, they have more contrast, those kinds of things. So drawing something in that third dimension and not in a flat plane, it gets really tricky. And then it's even, especially for our cartoon people who don't do a lot of like still life drawing, looking at something in 3 dimensions in life, something that's right in front of me, and capturing that third dimension, flattening it into the page is kind of hard. And so we'll take a picture sometimes, because then they have a 2-dimension to go, like a 2-dimensional reference to then render in 2 dimensions, as opposed to a 3-dimension to render in 2 dimensions. Sometimes that's easier. So we'll play with that with them. We're really looking for definitely an increase in ability and awareness of that third dimension. But also, like, we've already had our technical lessons, right? We've had lessons in draping clothing. We've had lessons in how to draw eyes, nose, mouth, hands, feet, shoes. We've had lessons in line weight, stippling, scrumbling, coloring. That, like, so we're looking for them to show us that, right? All those things we practice, like, these are the chances to put it all together, right? All right, drawing 103. Normally this is where I would show you their progress. I did check progress Friday before I took off and left town. A lot of them are just still kind of sketching in their journals. There wasn't a lot to show anyway, otherwise I would have taken pictures for you. But they'll take their sketches now and get them onto their like final paper. For our comic people, they're going to start inking. For our advanced realistic people, they will also start inking, although they might need a little bit of a lesson in that, since we haven't taught that. So our 103 comic are doing anthropomorphic characters. Miss Grace teaches that class in Liberty, and she said they are so excited, which is always a win when I can make teenagers excited. So they're so excited to do that project. Like, if we put a challenge out and they're excited, I feel good. Of course, I shouldn't, because Grace writes that, so Grace should feel good. And then the 103 for advanced realistic, they are doing like a botanical illustration, so a scientific illustration that is still very realistic, but done in a more illustrative way. And we're looking for line weight, stippling, and scrumbling from them as well. For them, they also have an added challenge of balancing their positive and negative space. We're looking for that botanical, or for that plant, to not just sit in the middle of the paper, but to stretch all the way out and touch the edges of the paper, and really take up the space, take up 50% of the paper kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. In some of their drawings, I look at it and I'm like, ooh, you need to zoom in. So we'll see if they make that adjustment or if they're like, no, thanks. I like it this way. All right, housekeeping. So I've got a couple things to note for housekeeping. Just a reminder, our submissions for the art show, you guys, the deadline is Friday, like this coming Friday, the 12th. Now, there are 2 steps to your submission process. You're going to need to fill out the online form and then drop off your artwork. Now, if you just drop off your artwork, there's a note up there that's like your art won't be displayed. And that's probably not really true. Like I'll hang it up, but it won't be in the program. Like your name won't be in the program. It won't be in the judging. And it won't be like, it won't have a gallery tag next to it with your like information on it. So you have to get your submission form in. So 2 steps, fill out the submission form, drop off the artwork. I'm going to start going through artwork in Liberty when I get back and matching submission forms with art that we have. And Sarah and Flatwoods, or the team in Flatwoods, will do the same thing. And then we'll start getting reminders out to people like, hey, we don't have a submission form for this piece. So that you can get that done. You do receive a copy of your submission form in your inbox. So if you didn't get a submission form in your inbox, like you didn't get the copy that you submitted, then we don't have it either. So make sure that you check that. There is like where you upload a photo to go with it, and that is so that we can match artwork to submission forms in case there's any like you'd think, oh, we don't really need to do that. You do. like people put post-it notes on artwork and then the post-it note falls off and now I don't know whose art this is. So the submission form photograph will help to do that. As far as dropping it off goes, so you can do the form at home and then all you got to do is bring it up to the studio. We are here in the studios when classes are going on. So for most days, that's in the mornings for preschool classes, and then in the evenings for regular classes, right? Like 5 to 9, except for like Wednesdays, we're not here quite as long because it's just makeups. On Friday though, which is the deadline, like Flatwoods doesn't have morning preschool classes. Usually they're doing like party prep and cleaning and they're there for the staff meeting, but like, and then they're there for makeups, but they're only there if people sign up for makeups. So like, don't wait till Friday. Okay. All right. The next thing, junior staff application is coming up on April 15th. So that's not Friday. That's like the following Monday. So if you're joining our summer staff, make sure you get that in. If you're a returning staff, there is there's just an availability form that you need to fill out, and you have until like May 12th. So you have some time for that for returners. But if you're a new staff member, make sure you get your application in so we can set up interviews. Oh, by the way, the interviews for, oops, go back. Oh, now I've messed everything up, you guys. Hang on. I was like, let me go back, but apparently that's not how PowerPoint works. Let me see if I can find it. So what I was going to say when I was like, let's go back, was that for our junior staffers, you guys, the interviews, sorry, I'm like, click, click, click. The interviews are going to happen after the art show. So normally we like I'm distracted because I'm trying to do too many things at once. And my phone's in my way because that's where my notes are. There. Where's the presentation button? Sent. Got it. Okay. But what I was going to say was normally like we do the applications and then we do interviews like immediately after the deadline. But because the art show falls in there, that week of like right before the art show, that's all I'm going to focus on is getting the show ready. So we won't do interviews until the week after the show. So it'd be the 22nd through like the 26th. Okay? But I will probably like right after the deadline, I'll send you like the email to schedule your interview. Okay, so you'll get all that. All right. And then lastly, just a reminder that May classes begin on the 29th for just drawing and multimedia. So if you're in fundamentals, you're in creative explorations, you guys meet only 3 times a month. Not worried about getting your classes done before Memorial Day, but my drawing and multimedia students who need 4 classes in the month of May, we're going to go ahead and start you guys on that 5th Monday and that 5th Tuesday of April, because that way we don't have to meet on Memorial Day, meet after Memorial Day, or meet in the first week of June, because nobody wants to do that. Okay. Look at a calendar if that's confusing, or send me a message. All right. You guys, I think that's it. So now I'm going to turn off my share. Yeah, that'll work. Okay. Well, I'm gonna go watch this video on YouTube, and hopefully the audio worked the whole time and the internet was strong enough, and all the things, and if not, you know, maybe I just have to send out notes, but hopefully everything went well. So I'll be back in town really late, or really early, depending on how you look at it, tonight, or early tomorrow morning. And so if anybody needs me, I will be on the road shortly after the eclipse and get back to Kansas City. So I will see you guys in the studio this week.